out there. This is another episode of our Money Heist podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening on Spotify, on the YouTube channel. Much appreciated. We are filming episode 28 today. Still mining through book number 3, which is Happy Money, the Japanese Art of Making Peace with Your Money by this amazing author called Ken Honda. Just 30 minutes before I started recording right now, I literally had to just go back and sit through chapter 2. Chapter 2 is approximately almost 40 something pages. And I gotta tell you guys, there's a lot of incredible information here. Even after this podcast, the filming, I need to go back and just remaster the arigato and learning to marrow up, which is the last section of the chapter we did together, where he talks about his mentor and really mastering this idea of always creating win-win situations. Number one, right? That's achieving a state of marrow, which we discussed in the previous recording, but also arigato, which is a Japanese word for saying thank you, right? This concept of completely being grounded in gratitude is a winner. It's a guaranteed winner. So once again, in episode 28, if you've been constantly following the podcast, I really hope by now you have your own gratitude journal. What I do, I don't know if I'm doing it the best way ever, but what I do personally is I write 10 things I'm grateful for every day. And I'm trying to stay conscious of those things. Sometimes they're big things. Sometimes nothing big happens in my life, except for the fact that I have a loving family and I'm grateful for that, right? That perpetual exercise keeps you in that state of continuous harmonious relationship with the thinking substance from book number 1. So please, don't take any of these principles lightly, right? That's the whole point of going through these books, is to learn from people who have done it, right? So we're now moving on to chapter 3, and today I'm going to read the entire chapter. I won't break this chapter into parts, only because we've got time. Number 1, number 2, it's not that long, all right? It's honestly not that long, and the chapter is called Money and Your Life. The previous chapter is a short recap. We looked at money IQ and money EQ, the different types of money IQ and the different types of money EQ. Then we looked at personalities with money. And then I said, money IQ is something that we're all going to have to figure out. I'm a trader, so I'm into the financial markets. So that's where my money IQ is. How do I increase my money from the financial markets? How do I improve better investments? I need to get better in my skills, in how you increase money IQ. Money EQ is a massive sense, and he stresses it, in chapter 2, that it is absolutely one of the most important aspects that you need to focus on when it comes to your relationship with money. That a lot of people have no idea how to relate with money, how money makes them feel, how they feel about money, etc. So there he talks about money EQ types, right? The different types of money EQ: money emotional intelligence, the compulsive saver, the hoarder, the spender, the money addict, the gambler type, all those personalities. And after that, we dealt with the stuff that you need to start working on: the warrior, anxiety, fear, doubt, right? Like a whole lot of stuff: guilt, low self-esteem, right? Self-neglect, that doubtfulness, that lack of confidence when you're executing your goals. And then they really emphasize that many money mistakes are related to emotions, which is money EQ. All right, so just as a very quick recap, I would encourage everyone to get a copy of this book and to really study chapter 2. I mean, study the whole book, but really figure out, because remember, he says at some point in time, you need to kind of like figure out your money blueprint being your socialization around money. All right, your socialize. My money blueprint, I grew up in a country that was, collapsing in terms of economic stability. I grew up. My parents back then were working for other people. So I grew up in flats, so to speak, and then gradually my parents' money IQ got better, right? So gradually my old man got self-employed, started his own business. Gradually my mom left her job to also then start her own stuff. So their money IQ gradually got better, right? So in primary school, I went to a very public, run-down government school, but in high school, they were able to put me into a private school, right? So that's money IQ: increasing money, spending money better, saving money, investing money, money IQ. So their money intelligence grew. Can't speak for my parents, but I'm assuming there was a lot of stuff lagging in their money EQ because their money blueprint is also, self-designed from the past. But there was a national economic collapse in the country, and so even their money IQ started to fluctuate, and it's been like that ever since, right? As an entrepreneur in a depleted state of economies like Zimbabwe, there's not much going on there. And so that's my money blueprint because I was raised in the lowest of the lows, but I also saw what the highs could look like. And so now that I'm, in my own standing with my own family, I I have to acknowledge my money blueprint, right? Acknowledge my fears around money. So I've seen money come and I've seen money go. I've seen money put you up here and then all of a sudden disappear and leave you high and dry. And so I'm conscious of that fear. I'm conscious of constantly worrying about the fact that, look, man, there might come a time where I lose it all, especially as a trader, right? If your full source of income is from the markets as a trader, your worst enemy is yourself, because every single bad trade you have, and you're supposed to have bad trades, you can't be right all the damn time, but every bad trade represents a terrible future. All right. So that's the anxiety, that's the self-doubt and fear that I constantly work on. And I work on it in a simple hack. For the last 3 to 4 years, I simply have strong affirmations that ground my faith, and I work on my money IQ. So I intensify my skill. I work better and harder than anyone else. I study my charts, because that's what I need to do so that I can become confident in what I'm doing, right? So it's just a quick example of how to navigate around that money blueprint topic. Right, so chapter 3, money and your life. Today's chapter is money and your life, and I really would encourage you guys to work on your blueprints, write them down, write a lot of these things down, get a little notebook, a little journal, and start to write stuff down about yourselves so that you have an actual perfect mirror representative of what it is that you're trying to work on. Right, let's read. Money and your life. Do you use money, or does money use you? At our kitchen table many years ago, my father said to me, money has two faces like a coin, God and the devil. I had many conversations with my father when I was little. Over the dinner table, he did talk to me about business, money, politics, and what was going on in the world. However, the way my father spoke that day was sort of unsettling. I remember that I felt as if I had overheard something I wasn't really allowed to know. Even as an adult, I can see what my father was referring to whenever I look at the newspaper or television, or get the feeling that there could be something darkly magical about money. It seems like every criminal case, both real and fictionally, revolves around money in one way or the other. More than once, you have probably heard stories about ordinary hardworking employees who had found themselves over their heads in debt due to a gambling addiction. Somehow, the situation always seems to escalate to abuse of company funds, bribery, fraud, and sometimes even violence and murder. How could this happen just because of money? It makes me feel as if money has a strange and dangerous power to take an average person and suck them into a world of insanity. The friends and family of that person will tell you he's such a calm person until money became involved and the rationality went out the window. Perhaps rationality goes out the window because money is so intimately connected to our lives and how we define ourselves and our values, right? So that's kind of like, you can't do away with money, right? It's completely linked to everything, right? So that rationality goes out the window. I did a lot of stupid stuff when in my early trading days, like a lot of dumb stuff with money. Now, anyone can be affected by similar stress, the kind that seemingly causes a sort of temporary insanity. Who hasn't lost sight of who they truly are, and done things they would consider crazy under normal circumstances, right? All because of money. Not everyone will necessarily resort to stealing or hurting someone, but it is not uncommon to do crazy things for money, like unhappily continue to work at a job, doing something just for the sake of paying your bills, or sucking up to customers or co-workers with insincere words to ensure a steady flow of income. If you don't gain an awareness about the extent to which money is influencing and controlling your current lifestyle and decisions, it is impossible to break free from money's grip over you. I think that's really powerful. If you don't gain awareness about the extent to which money is influencing or controlling your current lifestyle and decision, it is impossible to break free from money's grip over you. In order to release this grip, I believe you need to understand how you approach money, and there are only two approaches you can take. You either use your money well, or you allow your money to use you. Next subheading is, why are we so controlled by money? Facing our pasts. This is actually like very much tied to my introduction, Granted, I've read the book before, but I'm just saying it fits so well. Now, when my daughter was in kindergarten, I used to volunteer in a classroom a few times a week. I enjoyed watching over the children, watching them grow, and while I was there, I was able to sit back and make some observations. When we are born, we don't automatically become equipped with an opinion one way or the other about money. Our interest emerges much later, around the time we start going to kindergarten and playing with a variety of children. This is generally the case regardless of what country you grow up in. Of course, there are small differences between the Japanese and the Western educational system, but there are far more similarities, including the beloved Christmas holiday vacation. Japan shares the Western enthusiasm of decorating and preparing for Christmas holiday well in advance. Stores begin switching out orange, yellow candies for red and green ones as early as the 1st of November. This year, the year my daughter was in kindergarten, the classroom was lit up with lights and decorations as the holiday drew near. The cold weather outside made the doors seem warmer, and in the cozy environment, it was easy to get the Christmas spirit in as well. While the children were playing games one afternoon, I asked one of the boys what presents he was going to get for Christmas. Matter of factly, the child responded, "I'm not getting any." This wasn't exactly the type of answer I was expecting. Was he on Santa's naughty list this year? Maybe this boy wasn't fooled by the tales of Rudolph and the workshop elves. Curious, I asked, why not? He said, because my family is poor. Poor. Calculating the likelihood of the 6-year-old boy having a firm grasp of social and economic problems at this age, I asked him if he knew what the word poor meant, and he didn't. Where did you learn that word? He had heard his mother say it. She told him that was the reason they couldn't get presents. We have been unintentionally programmed by our parents to believe in the scarcity of money. They say things like, there is never enough money. That's just the way it is. Our traumatic experiences begin around the age of 6 or 7, when we begin to hear our parents make similar complaints and notice the size of the houses we live in, the clothes we wear, the cars our parents drive. We start to buy into the idea of scarcity. We begin to compare ourselves to our classmates. If they have more than we do, we think we can't have it now. We suddenly want more. What we have isn't enough. By the age of 10, we know our parents' rank in society and learn about the real world. If only we had more money, we could get more goodies, more respect, more love, and of course, more friends. By 15, most of us become slaves to money, willing to do just about anything to get more of it. Money even begins to affect our relationships as we start to date someone special and we want to shower them with presents. There are often large financial and social gaps between couples. We feel the pressure to take our dates out somewhere nice. We certainly don't want them. Sorry, I'll read that again. We certainly don't want to take them, there we go, to the wrong restaurant, offend them with a terrible present, or show them just how unworthy we are. A young woman once complained about a current boyfriend to me. I deserve more expensive presents. He only gets me cheap stuff. Maybe it's not the one because I deserve to be with someone who can take care of me. Many of us have been brainwashed like that dissatisfied young lady in believing that having more money means having a better life and more love. We are trained to believe we should work hard to get into good university, to get a better job, and then we should earn as much as possible. We fail to notice that as we climb the ladder, hoping to achieve more in our lives, we actually have much less. We climb and only begin to notice that something is wrong in our early 30s and 40s when we are neck deep in debt with our mortgages, car loans, student loans, credit card balances that just won't disappear. Then our children reach the age where they want to go to the best university and the hole gets deeper. Suddenly, dreaming about a 2-week vacation brings more anxiety than pleasure. We sense deeply that something is wrong, but we're too busy to stop to think about when the problem started. We are all influenced by the past. As I said, most of us have both fun and bitter memories involving money from when we were small. A 70-year-old client of mine cried like a baby when he talked about his mom and money. They had such a hard time when he was young. She couldn't put food on the table all the time, let alone get a toy for his birthday. Although wealthy and successful now, he can't get comfortable with his wealth. Fear dominates his every thought. His ultimate nightmare is that one day he will lose everything overnight. His memories of his childhood are still vivid. The trauma continues to haunt him. He is not the only one. Everywhere in the world, people have been hurt by money-related drama, especially their families when their families were involved. If you want to be free of money worries, you need to dig into your past relationship with money. Right? If you want to be free from money worries, you need to dig into your past relationship with money and examine what early traumas were. What are your fears? How and why does money control you? What have you been brainwashed to believe? While it can be painful and somewhat traumatic to look back, by understanding where you are today in regarding your relationship to money and your unconscious beliefs about money, you will better be able to see how it controls your life. After this process, you will feel much lighter and happier. Although painful, recognizing you are here, Mark, is a very necessary step into getting you from where you are now to where you want to go. Your money history shows how to identify your own personal patterns with money and what kind of a relationship you have with it until now. As much as many of us like to deny it, our parents and grandparents are responsible for most of our beliefs about money. All right? Very true. Your guardians. It is basically socialization that we have absorbed. All this together creates a money blueprint. However, once you look back in your history and see where you come from, you can rewrite this blueprint in order to take you where you really want to go and choose your beliefs to keep and which to throw away because they no longer serve you. Money and emotions. When you think about money, a lot of different emotions naturally surface. Someone who feels negative emotions in one situation could feel something completely different in another, such as appreciation and excitement. Most of these feelings show up below our level of awareness, so we don't actually spend time consciously thinking about what we feel. But when we experience these feelings are only at a subconscious level, we are unintentionally limiting the way we experience our life without even noticing. Worry or anxiety that you experience because of money, especially when it's vague and hard to detect, can take over and overshadow your life. I'll just go through that part again. Money and emotions. When we think about money, a lot of different emotions naturally surface. Someone who feels negative emotions in one situation could feel something completely different in another, such as a deep appreciation or excitement. Most of these feelings show up below our level of awareness, so we don't actually spend time consciously thinking about what we feel. But when we experience these feelings only at a subconscious level, we are unintentionally limiting the way we experience our life. Without even noticing, worry or anxiety that you experience because of money, especially when it's vague and hard to detect, can take over and overshadow your life. For instance, perhaps there's something you really wanted to do for yourself or someone else, but because of anxiety about how to pay for it, you ended up choosing not to do anything at all. Or perhaps you're completely choosing to stay at a job that you know doesn't suit you. Or maybe you have uncontrolled outbursts. You get upset over sudden and unexpected expenses you weren't prepared for, and you end up criticizing your significant other for something unrelated. These are just examples of how we can easily be affected by the feelings about money at any point in time. I think that's a very practical example. Whenever money was tight, buying bread was an issue. Like, I wanted it to be in the budget. Why was it not in the budget? Like, I mean, I'm being small and petty, but I'm going to keep using this as an example, because then there's no judgment and I can freely judge myself, because it doesn't affect me. But I'm hoping that my anecdote stories are practical and empowering. Like, I really used to be uptight about money. I really used to have a problem with spending money and releasing money, because I thoroughly believed in scarcity of money. I was completely consumed by that idea. And that's fundamentally due to the lows of my trading career, where I just kept losing and losing money, getting into debt and losing money and losing money. And so it was a very difficult thing for me to even understand why we'd buy food last week Tuesday, and then this week we need more bread. Like, what happened to last week's bread? Like, it sounds silly, but in my mind, I'd feel this stuff, the negative emotions. I would feel it, not know it, and more importantly, I would justify it. It would be rationalized. I would defend it. I'll be like, look, man, at the end of the day, money is scarce, right? So we need to be very careful, like, and had I taken the time back then to be much more honest about how I felt and why I felt that way, I'm pretty sure I would have dug myself out of that hole, a whole lot quicker, than I did. But yeah, it's just an example of how easily, we can be affected by our feelings about money at any point in time. As I continue to read. Now, over many years as a consultant, I've seen firsthand what kinds of feelings people experience when money is involved. Like the wealthy old man who cried over his mother being unable to buy him a toy. Many of my clients would be brought to tears when discussing childhood memories related to money. Others acted out in different ways. They were petty and impetuous. They would be quick to complain and even sue someone over trivial matters because they were so upset and desperate about their current life situations. Our feelings about money can reach deep places inside of us that aren't normally accessible in other circumstances. Perhaps that is why money is one of the top reasons couples divorce. If you look into it a little, you might even see that money is quite often the source and frustration in your relationships or business problems. I did like to have you do a bit of self-assessment to see what emotions most commonly experience when you think about or deal with money. I'll go through some of the most common emotions and you can see which apply best to your life. Once you understand the kinds of feelings you have about money, the amount of stress you feel because of money, you will drop substantially. Why? Because we can't fix or work on what we don't know. Through self-awareness and observation, we can ameliorate our moods and relationships. We can begin to reframe our approaches to money. We can stop seeing it as something that harms us and begin to see it as something that has the potential to bring good into our lives. Let's get started. The many emotions that money provokes in you. I just want to quickly highlight this because I think that's a nice touch for our summary later on. Right, so the many emotions that money provokes in you. There are many emotions that the ones below, of course, but I've selected some of the most prevalent that I have witnessed. There are no right ones to have, but some will have either a positive or negative effects in your life and well-being. Number one, again, very common, absolutely top. I think everybody who suffers from unhappy money has this one, number one. And everybody, generally speaking, who is not educated around money suffers from unhappy money. I could be wrong, but it's very rare that people instinctively know how to create happy money. That means understand that money is an energy, understand all these things that we're talking about in this book without going through some type of educational process or reading stuff like this, right? Anyone who hasn't come across money literacy information, not just money IQ, how to make money, but how to relate with money, suffers from number one, which is anxiety and fear. Okay. Now, when people spend money, they often experience some level of anxiety. As they take out their cash or credit card to hand to the cashier, they worry about whether they have made the right choice. Another common feeling is worrying about what would happen if the money you have right now ran out. Would you end up homeless if you suddenly lost your job? Some people fear just getting through the week, living from paycheck to paycheck. What if I can't feed my kids this week? Fear and anxiety about money dominate most people's daily lives, right? This is literally, the coldest truth, right? It is why it's so many people stay in horrible jobs, decrepit houses, bad neighborhoods, or abusive relationships. Often people on the outside looking say things like, why do you stay? Or why did you put up with it? The short answer is fear, right? It's just fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of what will happen if you make the change, fear that they don't have the strength or the way or wherewithal to make the move, but they will offer an oft-used excuse. I don't have enough money to make the moves I need, so they stay. But it is important to remember that whatever fears you experience about your life and future don't really have a direct relationship to money itself. What do I mean by that? I mean that the fears related to money are a result of other unconscious fears. Now, you don't just fear not having money to provide for yourself. You have fear of failure, right? Fear of failure. You have many fears of being inadequate in your eyes of your parents or loved ones. The fears you have about not being worthy, deserving, or good enough could very well be manifesting themselves in your relationship to money. You may think, if only I had more money, I did be more deserving of someone's love. If only I had more money, I did be valued by my colleagues and friends. So you strive for more and more. Meanwhile, your anxiety around money builds and builds. Unless you stop and actually confront inner fears and self-limiting thoughts that you have about yourself, it won't matter how you deal or try to deal with your money problems, because the core issue still remains untouched. Number two, anger and resentment. It is not hard to find someone who feels anger or resentment about money. When we feel we didn't get paid as promised, we feel angry. When there is a shortage of money, we get upset easily. When we see that others have more than we do or earn more than we do, we start to feel that we are being shortchanged somehow. Sometimes we get angry at people who we think are the cause of our money. So many times, so many crimes occur because of these emotions. Why? Because money is linked so closely with our survival. With the exception of a few tribes left on earth, we all need money to exchange for food, clothing, and shelter, healthcare. Without money, we die. Our kids die. Yes, the stakes are high. So when we don't get what we believe we deserve, or what we have earned, or if we feel robbed or taken advantage of, we feel threatened. That is to say, our lives feel threatened, right? And what do our brains do when they feel threatened? Thanks to the amygdala in our brain, we have to fight or flight response mechanism that takes over to help us survive in these life-threatening situations. While some of us do run in these circumstances, most of us fight. We get angry. We become enraged. It's not fair. I want my money now. However, the reality is that most of us aren't in real immediate danger of dying. A bear isn't chasing us through the woods, and a shark isn't attacking us, although it can feel like that when we're panicked about money. Nevertheless, we are so often in a flight or fight mode, fighting for this idea for survival, that we don't see there's a better way to manage our emotions. And in our modern world, the key to happiness is recognizing that we don't need to constantly fight. We don't need to be angry or resentful. I thoroughly believe in this. I'm not going to name names. There's a company in this town that still owes me a whole lot of money. Like a lot of money. Like a ridiculous amount of money. And at the time, I needed that money. My family would have done so well with that money. And I kept, so it was a meeting. I recorded the meeting. I didn't know I was going to use, I used the OBS studio software so you can record a Zoom meeting without the person knowing that you're recording a Zoom meeting. Because I was compiling evidence, right? Like, dude, you told me you're going to pay me. I did the job. I did overtime, right? Trading wasn't going well for me. There was like a lot of things going wrong. So we needed that 5-figure paycheck, that was going to make a lot of our problems at that time go away. And immediately, I talked to my partner. My partner is my greatest defender. She expresses her love basically as a protective hen. So she was like leading the charge for the war. And luckily enough, I had this rule that my old man taught me way back when I was growing up. And the rule was simply, if you feel the same way tomorrow, then sure, act on it. So I went to sleep that day and I felt calmer, right? So I was still pissed off because they owe me money, that I was much calmer. And I didn't act on it. Till today, they didn't pay. But, it's not the best story, I guess, to tell. The bigger point was instinctively, I understood that choosing not to fight was a better path for me. Now, I'm not saying when people owe you money, don't go after your money. When people need to pay you back, don't go after your money. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying for what I needed at that time in my life. And when I look into where we are today, that company, same company, has done many other things, in and around, not necessarily just for my life, but for my family and my siblings and etc., etc. And it's because I maintain good relations. I was able to let go of the small price at that time. When I look back now, it's like, geez, what on earth was I fighting for at the time? Hey, Samuel, is it Sirid? Sirid, yeah, man, pleasure. Thank you for tuning in. It was such a powerful moment for me to realize that, listen, the things that are the most problem in my lives are the things that are related to money, number one, but number two, the things that create anger and resentfulness, like a lot of the times. And I'm glad I avoided that fight. But my message to you is not don't fight for your money. My message is more around the lines of just consider what he's saying. He's saying, don't ever let your money control you. Right. Then he's saying there's a part of our brain, right? And I'll be teaching this in my trading psychology course for actual traders. The flight or flee mode, which is constantly engaged when we're watching charts. Flight or flee is a stressful time. We systematically engage in that for survival, right? If there's a big dog in front of you and that dog is not on a leash and you are 90% sure you're going to get bitten by that dog, everything about your body wants you to run. It doesn't matter how many kgs you weigh. It doesn't matter if the last time you ran was in primary school. It doesn't matter even though you know at the back of your mind a dog has 4 legs and a dog can outrun a human being. So even if you run right now, it will catch you. You will still attempt to run because you are now thoroughly engaged in survival, flight or fear. Right? And most traders don't know that. Most traders don't know that 9 out of 10 times they are trading from a perspective of flight or flee, which is a dangerous place to be to make decisions. And so my message to you and what the author is saying is that be careful that your money doesn't push you there. The lack of resources in your life today will always push you there. It's always, you have to choose. I mean, one thing I hated about being broke was I always had to choose. Why couldn't I pay for rent and take my family out for dinner? Why did those things have to come as one or the other? Why couldn't we buy bread and chicken? You always have to choose. Like lack of resources or that scarcity in your life for finances pushes you back into full defensive, right? So now you're like, everything is complete survival, right? Yes, everybody wants this juice and this one wants this drink and this one wants that drink. But what's the cheapest drink that we can all drink? All right. So lack of resources is a tendency to start getting you to think like that. And he's saying, be very careful about that, right? That's what he's saying. That normally, because without the immediate gratification of money that is owed to you, that you need now, that's just not there, we somehow, our mind is a part of our brain that triggers flight or flee, and all of a sudden we feel like without money we will die. All right, our kids will die, and the stakes are high. I'm literally quoting here. All right, so just be aware of that. And in our modern world, the key to happiness is recognizing that we don't need to constantly fight. It doesn't say don't fight at all, but don't constantly fight. We don't need to be angry or resentful. Number 3, sadness and sorrow. So just as a reminder, we are currently going through the top 5 things, right, where the emotions that money provokes in you. The first one was anxiety and fear. The second one is anger and resentment. And number 3 is sadness and sorrow. When we remember our childhoods, we think of the dreams we had for ourselves. Then look at our lives. We don't seem to match our youthful fantasies. It's natural to feel a little let down, disappointed and sad. Who hasn't experienced that feeling? A dream that didn't come true can truly be heartbreaking. And it's not just our hopes and dreams we mourn. We want to give so much to our kids and our families. And when we can't, because of our limited resources, we get down on ourselves. We look out at the world full of tragedies, corruption, war, death, senseless horrors, and we think this is all because of money. Our collective sorrow about injustice, pain, suffering, heartbreaking loss can be destructive if left unmanaged. Right. Number 4, hatred and desperation. If you're taken advantage of, or you feel a general sense of outrage, but at some point you begin to feel hatred toward the person or an entity that did this to you. If you feel the situation cannot be changed, you begin to turn that hatred inward toward yourself and you become desperate or depressed. We have all witnessed a couple fighting through a bitter divorce. One party always felt wrong, cut out, taken advantage of. The anger that grew out of being threatened or harmed in some way turns into hatred. Some feel hatred toward the offending party, others turn that hatred inward and become so forlorn and depressed, and they feel helpless to change their circumstances. Divorce, layoffs, salary cuts, diminished returns from the market, or threats of losing one's home all cause this response. Remember, the man who went to my father asking for assistance, he was desperate, filled with self-loathing and hatred, and he ultimately committed suicide. Violent crime, suicide, depression, and hopeless despair can all happen when our anger is fixated on someone else or ourselves, right? So be careful of anger, right? Hatred and depression. Number 5, superiority and inferiority. I'd go as far as to say these are the primary emotions that drive us to buy most of the things we actually don't need. Have you ever bought something because you didn't want the salesperson to think you were stingy or had a bad taste? Have you ever bought an extravagant gift you couldn't afford because you wanted to impress a friend? Face it, we've all bought something because we felt obliged to in order to avoid appearing stingy or poor. We may buy things so we look better than others. The world is full of brand names. Otherwise, rational humans actually pay extra to advertise expensive goods for someone else. We think of it as a badge of honor to spend more money or something. Who really needs a mega mansion and 10 bedrooms and 12 bathrooms and 5-car garage for a family of 4? Who really needs to own 30 jackets or 100 pairs of designer shoes? The answer is obviously no one. So why do we do it? We spend money so we don't have to feel inferior in front of others, so we can feel superior to those around us. It is that simple. That is why members of the upper middle class are constantly struggling to buy expensive brands to look wealthier than they really are. They don't want to feel inferior to the more affluent friends, and they want to feel superior to those of the lower middle class folks they are trying desperately to separate themselves from. Unless they are into fashion as a hobby or appreciate it as an art form, truly wealthy people do not necessarily feel the need to buy famous brands or for the sake of looking good. They don't need a brand name to stake their claim. Warren Buffett, one of the wealthiest men in the world, lives in the same home that he and his wife bought in 1958 for a little over $31,000. It is estimated that its current value is only 0.001% of his total net worth. Most of us live in houses that far exceed our means because we care so much about what others think of us versus what we actually truly need to live happy, comfortable lives. When we asked why he still lives in the modest home and hasn't upgraded it to a more extravagant residence, which he can obviously afford, Buffett told BBC News, "I am happy there." The translation, he's present there. He has no anxiety about the future, no anger about the past. He's happy because he's free from time and illusions of scarcity. Now, number 6, guilty and shame. Wealthy people often suffer from feelings of guilt, especially if they inherited money from their relatives. Although they may not feel guilt towards someone specific, it may be a general malice that overwhelms them. Some rich people spend their entire lives feeling embarrassed about their wealth or burdened by the expectations that people have of them and their money. They see others in the world working so hard for so little, and their guilt is reinforced. People in this situation can be prone to drug or alcohol abuse in order to numb those feelings. If guilt is something that people feel for having too much shame, if guilt is something that people feel for having too much, shame is the emotion that people feel when they're struggling financially, right? So guilt is when you think you're too rich. Shame is when you're actually struggling financially. Even in childhood, people can feel shame for not having enough. Not being able to afford the things that other people have can make a person believe that they are somehow flawed. When this feeling persists, it can drive people to work harder rather than smarter, deprive them of their joy in life that anyone deserves to have, regardless of their income. Numbness, number 7. This is actually common among us all. We don't like to feel much in our daily lives. Feeling things requires some sort of action or reaction. Most of us don't want to take the necessary actions to manage the feelings appropriately, so we numb ourselves as much as possible, whether it's with food, alcohol, drugs, television, or just checking out and going through the motions. So we go numb. Many of us try to numb our feelings, especially when it comes to money. We don't want to feel affected by money, so we suppress our true feelings, whether these emotions are anxiety or elation. For example, I remember an experiment that some television program was airing. They set up cameras to record the facial expressions of customers when they are checking out with their items. The higher the price at checkout, the less expressive the consumer was. Maybe they were trying to hide the joy and pride that they had felt while shopping. Maybe they were ashamed or embarrassed by such a large purchase. Or perhaps they were trying to avoid unnecessary attention or jealousy. Depending on their relationship with money and the beliefs they have about money, about what money means to them, people's emotions may vary. Somehow, and for some reason, we have been trained not to express these emotions in public out of fear of either ridicule or jealousy. However, in our attempts to suppress and numb our emotions to avoid unwanted attention, we invariably suppress positive emotions as well. Before I was properly educated on this stuff. I knew that I had a terrible relationship with money. I just didn't know how to fix it. And I think what I did do was trying to move away from the fear and anxiety. I jumped into the numbness thing. So if my partner would say something about money that I thought was fearful, I would be quick to correct her. And in correcting her, I'd be like, no, babe, don't say we're poor or don't say we don't have money. In correcting her, I wasn't really being like my most true version of myself. I was trying to portray that I have this mindset about money that's now good, but it actually, I think I was just numbing my own fears. I was numbing my own anxiety. I didn't want her to keep saying that because it was a true reflection of the reality, and I actually wasn't brave enough to confront it at that particular time, right? So numbing it is not the same as dealing with it, essentially. Number 8, excitement and joy. Money can provoke excitement and joy. Right. Wait. I've lost the page. Oh, there we go. Excitement and joy. Now, kids can show excitement and joy more freely than adults. Just head down to your nearest playground and watch kids run around and play. They celebrate each other, clapping, jumping down when someone else does something cooler or amazing. They laugh freely at themselves and others. Is it a hint of self-consciousness or worry? They are there to have fun and they know it. Adults can feel this way too on occasion, but it's typically not socially acceptable to jump up and clap or dance with joy when we're excited in our normal everyday lives, especially when it pertains to money. Can you imagine an employee who jumps up and claps on receiving news of a raise? We have grown-ups, we don't do that. Can you imagine joyfully shouting out when you receive an unexpected gift or buy something for yourself that you've always wanted? Joy and happiness are positive feelings that money can bring to us, but we've been trained or conditioned not to gush about these things. When was the last time you were so excited about money, right? What if I told you that if you had allowed yourself to feel the joy of receiving money and money spending, you would likely invite more into your life, right? For a lot of people with this concept that is hard to comprehend, they were simply told over and over that money doesn't buy you happiness. True, it can't buy happiness, which we know comes from within and being present, but it can bring you feelings of joy and gratitude. And yes, it can make you feel happy. Okay, so number 9, the next one, appreciation and love. Appreciation and love. When our friends and family members give us presents, it is quite natural to feel appreciated and loved. That is why sometimes the energy attached to money feels so much like love. Many of us literally show love with money. We buy gifts that are meaningful. We want to help alleviate others' stress and concerns. Getting a verbal thank you for something feels great. But when we receive money or gifts from the people around us for doing something, we feel even more appreciated or validated. In fact, when someone graciously buys us something or gives us something, we feel honored and accepted. We feel valued, and we work at work if our clients and customers are happy with our performance and we're willing to pay more. It makes not only you, the recipient of the money, happy, it makes the givers of the money happy too. Now, they are putting their money into something or more accurately, someone who brings them joy, happiness, and peace. Even if the gifts or amounts are small, if they are given with love and appreciation and joy, the recipient can literally feel that energy. Excuse me. Investments can be a form of love too. Investments can be a form of love too. The British band Mumford and Sons has a song with the lyric, "Where you invest your love, you invest your life." When we invest our money in things we love and care about, we are giving ourselves and others that loving energy. I often ask my audience to name the biggest gift they have ever received from someone not in their own families. I usually see a lot of hands go up in the group. Some say 10,000, 50,000. The biggest number I have ever heard was $500,000. A happy customer gifted a sushi chef with this amount of money. Can you imagine? Apparently, the chef had mentioned wanting to have his own restaurant someday and told his customer that he was saving $100 a month from his salary. After hearing the story, the customer commented that it would take years to do it, and the chef explained that he had already been saving for 10 years and still didn't have enough. The customer replied that he would fund the chef's restaurant and would do it within 2 years. But the chef hesitated, saying, "I don't have any collateral." The customer replied, "That's okay. I'm impressed with your attitude and I want to support you. I love you and I love what you do." The customer put loving energy behind his money and invested it into someone he cared about. It not only made the chef feel loved, but it confirmed what he loved in the process. Number 10, happiness. We all feel happy when we receive an unexpected bonus of surprise influx of cash. If it could be a gift from our parents or in the form of tax refund, we simply feel happy. But what do I mean by happy? I mean we can be present without worrying about the future or anxiety about the past, because we finally feel we have enough for the time being. And remember, Ken has been talking a lot about this idea of being present, being zen, being present. And a good example is, back then I'd be very anxious. So my anxieties were always around rent. Could I trade enough to cover food and rent? And rent is a ticking time bomb, because every 4 weeks, boom, it explodes. You have to pay. No matter what happened during that month, no matter if the markets were ranging, if you're not a trader, you wouldn't understand, but you don't make money all the time in the markets. You have to wait for the markets to create momentum and move. But if markets ranged for 2 weeks, which means I couldn't really place good trades, and I only had 2 more weeks in a month to raise rent, I'd have to start over-risking my account and I'd lose it most of the time. But on the days I finally had enough to pay rent, right, literally put money down and tell myself, God, I don't owe the landlord, for that window, maybe an hour, maybe that whole day, I would be present. I literally would become a loving human being again. I'll be stress-free again. I'll be, all over my partner, excited, wanting to pop up some popcorn and Netflix and chill. Because for me back then, that was the biggest achievement, just constantly meeting those monthly bills. And that's what he's saying. He's saying during that moment where you are happy, and by happiness, you're truly present, free of anxiety, free of future worry, you need to familiarize yourself with that feeling. So if your happiness comes every time you successfully do 1, 2, 3, or you get 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 payments in your life, with that feeling, the next time you feel it, try to create a memory of that feeling, because you need to learn how to develop that feeling outside of your everyday money fights, right? So you need to learn how to feel content, learn how to be zenful, learn how to be present despite what's going on, because that is, the neutral factor of money. That money, if it finds you much more zen, much more present, right? A lot of amazing things can happen now. So he says we all feel happy when we receive an unexpected bonus or a surprise influx of cash. It could be a gift from our parents or in the form of a tax refund. We simply feel happy. What do I mean by happy? I mean we can be present without worrying about the future or having anxiety about the past, because we finally feel we have enough for the time being. We can breathe a sigh of relief. We also feel that with more money, we have more choices. But what if I told you it was, there we go. What if I told you that it was possible to feel happy before the money even came to you? Guys, that's the mission. That's the goal. But if I told you, you could look what if you could look at all you have and say, it's enough? If you believe it's enough, I mean truly believe it, then I guarantee you will feel happy. So happy, in fact, that surprising things may just happen. Things will work out as they need to. It doesn't matter if you're Warren Buffett or Jimmy Buffett, or if you can only afford $10 all you can eat buffet. Warren Buffett, right? If you think you have enough, you will be happy. Yes, it is possible to have a happy mindset and emotions when it comes to money. It comes from inside before the money even flows your way. If you too want to feel this way, simply focus on that happy, contented feeling, believing that you have more than enough. If you need more, it will come from somewhere. Like, this is so important, man. I mean, I know sometimes it can get annoying if you're here just for me to read the book and I keep talking in between, but it's absolutely important. Number one. Number two, I don't want this to just remain as an abstract idea in your head. I want to emphasize that there is an actual practical way to stay happy. Remember, like I said, the next time you finally feel that zenfulness, that presence, because all of a sudden all your stresses and worries are gone, it'll be for a temporary time, right? It could be like me. Every time I used to meet rent, right? When we used to rent, when I met rent, that day where I sent all that money to the landlord, oh my goodness gracious, I was so light, I was free, I was whatever. Now, once you remember that, you need to stay in that feeling. So you map out a memory of how you feel, how you're acting, how you're treating people, how people are treating you. Just be aware of all those things. And then to nail it, to maintain that zenfulness, that ability to be present, to say what I have right now is enough, is not a financial declaration that you don't want more, that you are happy where you stay, you don't need a bigger house. That's not what he's saying. He's saying you have to start training your emotions around money. And the way to do that is to fix how you feel before waiting for the money to come to trigger and provoke that feeling of happiness. And this is it. If you want to practice this thing consistently, all you have to do is create a gratitude notebook. And every day I come onto my gratitude notebook, I write the day on the top, blah, 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 and I start to lament what I'm grateful for, etc., etc. And the reason for that is I want to constantly practice Zen. I want to constantly be aware that, geez, had it not been for ABC, I wouldn't be here. And if I'm here right now and I am happy right now, I can't even begin to imagine where I'm going. That was my mindset back then. The first paragraph of my affirmations, and I know I've done that in one of the earlier podcast episodes. I got the first 3 lines from the late Bob Proctor. Like, Bob Proctor passed away about a week ago now, or 2 weeks ago. And that was just his affirmation. Right? His affirmation wasn't as big or long or as technical as mine. His was just simply these words: I am so happy and grateful that money comes to me in increasing quantities on a continuous basis. I believe this to be true because it has already happened, right? So I have always, years gone past now, 4 or 5 years, when I've been practicing, been present, been zenful, my daily affirmations, I've always started all my affirmations with that line. My kids know that line by or the 7-year-old anyways, by heart. I am so grateful and happy that money comes to me in increasing quantities on a continuous basis, right? So centering yourself in that just ability to be happy with what you have now is absolutely crucial. Now, why is it so hard to have a happy relationship with money? Most people have a difficult relationship with money because because the ways they earn and spend it are unhealthy. Which is to say, a lot of people work at a job they hate just for a paycheck, and the stress adds up quickly. Suffering is embedded in the act of getting money. Yes, man. Yes, it's like asking someone, why do slaves hate being slaves, right? Pretty much the job of a slave was to endure suffering and pain, exploitation. So he's saying the same thing happens today, where a lot of people are stuck in the way they are getting money, right? The way they're getting money imbues a lot of suffering. When he was looking at money IQ in the previous chapter, he spoke about making sure at some point you take the bold step to do what you love to do. Now, I'm not doing a podcast on an early Sunday morning which is completely for free. It's like all of this stuff is for free because I have nothing to do. I'm doing this because I love it. I love making an impact on people. I finally figured out what it was I wanted to do with my life. For my financial career, I wanted to be a trader. There's something so attractive about outsmarting millions and millions and millions and millions of minds across the globe every single day, about the flow of money that actually moves, right? The modus operandi of the global economy. It's for me, it's absolutely fascinating. The better I am at trading, the better I am at my career, I feel fulfilled. The second part of my identity is then using that to make an impact on people's lives. I absolutely love getting that feedback. Okay, God, I didn't understand this. Now I do. Look at the growth. I'm now debt free. I'm now in the senior traders program. I'm a six-figure trader. That stuff, that's my legacy. I thoroughly love what I do. And he does say, if you want to increase your money IQ, it is so much better, so much easier to do it when you're actually operating in something that you actually love, right? And so he's saying here, a lot of people get stuck in the stuff they hate or are just doing something for paycheck to paycheck. The stress quickly adds up. The suffering is embedded in an act of getting money. Without realizing it, feelings of stress and pain or irritation come up every time they use to think about money. Even though those feelings originated from doing the work they dislike, the lines between work and money are blurred. When you force yourself to earn money at a job you hate, doing in the first place, it becomes much harder to let that money go without a damn good reason. I work hard for this money. This is my money. I work hard for my money, right? You can see it. If you have anxiety over Monday and you just don't want to go to work because it's a Monday, you'll know, right? You feel the pressure not to waste it. In fact, it irritates you spending a dime on anything. This was me. When money feels hard to come by, it is definitely harder to let go. It also ingrained in us by our parents in our childhood that we should never waste money. Those memories pop up quietly in the form of stress, telling us not to spend money than necessary whenever possible. That leaves us constantly looking at how much we have left, then worrying over how to save or earn more. We end up feeling a lot more confused than we need to be. Whenever money is involved, we have this tendency to fret over how to spend it or think we may have made the wrong decisions. We feel frustrated earning money, excited when spending it, then worried about whether it will be there in the future. Eventually, we get fed up with this pattern and wish for a world without money at all. Careful what you wish for. The law of attraction will help you realize that dream, at least as far as your own bank account. So what about the happy, prosperous people we sometimes hear about? They are like unicorns. Excuse me there. We've heard of them, but most of us rarely interact with them. But I assure you, they are out there, and their relationship with money is completely different in every way. They earn money doing things that bring them joy, and that joy begets joy. It brings with it fun and excitement and gratitude. When they spend money, they also feel happiness and appreciation. So stress is not part of the equation at all, right? Stress is not part of the equation. They carry a quiet confidence in their ability to earn or come up with money when needed. So they don't feel much stress or anxiety about the future either. When it comes to money, this type of person acts almost entirely out of positive emotions. That is the biggest difference between happy and prosperous people and the type I mentioned before. So why are we so afraid? The reason we are so afraid is that we've been hurt by money in the past. Some of us learned at a young age to have a few expectations when it came to money. You wanted something badly for your birthday or Christmas, and you didn't get that exact present. Or maybe you were scolded for spending too much or too quickly after receiving money as a gift. Or you were too poor a student and your parents struggled to pay your tuition, so they yelled at you for wasting their hard-earned money. Or perhaps your spouse blamed you for a bad decision you made with money. Spouses often have very different ideas of how and when money should be spent. Arguments erupt and fingers get pointed, and in the end, everyone is left with negative feelings about money. Instead of understanding their attitudes toward money, people blame money and more often their lack of it. For being the problem, I've watched parents berate their children for choosing expensive birthday gifts for their friends instead of congratulating their children on their openness and generosity. If more parents had a healthy relationship with money, they would raise their children first and teach them about money and the appropriate amount to spend on a gift. We receive so many proverbial punches in the gut when we are young that we begin to think that any kind of spending is bad. Whatever we do is not right. And so this translates into whatever we do will not be enough. So when we make decisions, we act out of fear instead of love. What are we afraid of? Doing something wrong. We fear we are paying too much. We doubt our own decisions so much so we can't make the most basic buying decision. However, we are purchasing, whether we're purchasing a bag of coffee or a car, we instantly doubt it. Then because we already don't feel great about it, we regret it. Then come the complaints and negative thoughts about money. I got a bad deal. Nothing ever works out for me. Money goes out faster than it comes in. I'll never have enough money at this rate. I am so stupid. Sound familiar? You are not alone. Lots of people think like this and behave like this because it's all they have been taught. Some negative beliefs about money that may be holding you back. One of my clients held the belief that money wouldn't stay with her. Even though she made good money, she couldn't keep it. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy. We manifest what we believe in life. However, most of us aren't even aware of the many negative subconscious beliefs that we have been operating under for years. I will share with you many of the negative and positive beliefs that have been encoded in our blueprints and passed down from generation to generation as you go over these negative beliefs. I invite you to examine which ones you may hold. In fact, you may even shout out, as some of my clients do, this one that is exactly what I believe. Let's start with negative beliefs. Money is bad. That's belief number one. A lot of people have a negative view of money. At the very least, they feel they have to be cautious when they deal with money. Whatever you do, you have to be careful. Money can be a bad thing. Number two, money disappears fast. When you need money most, you can't find it. It quickly disappears. Right after it comes into your life, it'll go fast. In Japanese, we used to call it oshi or aishi. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, which means feet. Money seems to walk quickly away from you. I guess we can all relate to this too. Number three, money hurts people. This is also a common belief. Money, in the literal sense, cannot hurt people. However, we may feel hurt because money triggers some pain in us. Sometimes triggers a lack of self-worth. Sometimes our past relationship issues. Sometimes people do use money as a weapon. They use it to attack others or buy things that can use to harm people. Money is scary. When we think that money can accomplish anything, money seems bigger than what it is. We know we cannot get hurt by money. Money is scary is the next one, sorry. When we think that money can accomplish anything, money seems bigger than what it is. We know we can get hurt by money. That is why we begin to be afraid of money. We are afraid of many things, but money by itself is not scary. Number 5, money creates trouble. If you have a bad memory about money, you may feel this way, but money doesn't create trouble. We do. We create trouble when we break promises or contracts, withhold money out of greed, miss payments, or don't use it in a sincere way. Number 6, money invites jealousy. We are afraid of negative attention in general. Having a lot of money can cause that. So if we feel hesitant about having a lot of money for this reason, that is understandable too. Now, here are some positive beliefs about money. Money supports people. Of course, money can support people by enabling them to make a living, helping them learn new things and providing them with security and the necessity required to live. Money makes people happy. As I mentioned in previous sections, money does elicit positive emotions as well. You can in fact feel happy about money, even if you have only a little of it. When given or receive happy money energy, money can make someone feel good. Even a postcard can make someone feel happy. Number three, actually, when it comes to positive beliefs about money. So I'll just call them out again. Positive beliefs about money. Number one, money supports people. Positive belief number two, money makes people happy. Positive belief number three, money helps realize dreams. This is a good one too. People all have all kinds of dreams, and sometimes money helps people to fund them. They can be expensive as the trip to Mars, or they can cost very little. Money bonds people. If you spend money wisely, you can help create better relationships. For example, you can use money to plan a family trip and make happy memories that will last a lifetime. You can use money to make all kinds of fun arrangements that bring you closer to your family and friends. Sometimes I use my money to treat my young students to lunch. I invite 20 or 30 together and we talk and laugh. Number four, in the positive things that money does, money warms people's hearts. You can send flowers to sick friends. You can send money to foster care facilities. A few years ago, there was an anonymous donation of school backpacks to a local orphanage here in Japan. The sender, the gift, called him or himself Tiger Mask, which is the name of a famous cartoon character in Japan. After news of the donation was broadcast on TV, hundreds of similar donations started to arrive, not only at the orphanage, but at nursing homes and other places that needed similar support. That movement inspired everyone and gave them a warm feeling. Your money history. Your money history is how you have lived with money. Since you were small, how was your relationship with money been? Is it a happy one or a frustrated one? When you think of the past, does that give you nice feelings or make you feel intense? As we have discussed in previous sections, it is clear that there are many misunderstandings we humans have about money. If you recall significant events that took place and investigate what really happened, you know the truth. It is often liberating. As we know, we have been heavily influenced by our parents with regards to money. If our parents had a healthy relationship with money, our financial life is probably pretty good. But most of our parents were damaged one way or another when it came to money. So the chances are most of us are pretty damaged too. You won't have to dig too hard to remember your parents fighting about money. Probably the memories are still pretty fresh. Those ugly fights seem to stick with us for some reason. You may have seen your mom and dad very upset with each other, or with you or your siblings. Your parents might have fought about spending too much or earning too little, or maybe they blamed each other or their kids for the fact that there was never enough. Someone always had to be at fault. No matter what the fights were about, recalling them has the power to stir up even the most unsuppressed feelings. If you had a single parent, they may not have had anyone to argue with, but they may have taken out the angst out on you and their other children. You may have observed your mother or father worrying about financial matters. If your parents ever got physical or violent, or at the very least loud and aggressive when arguing, you too could be aggressive about money with people, even the ones you care deeply about. Most of us have several negative memories involving money, but even those of us with the most of our childhoods can recall some good moments with money. Perhaps you once did receive something you asked for. Maybe one of your relatives surprised you with cash, or maybe you were granted permission to see a movie with friends or given a few dollars to go. All the memories, both good and bad, add up to your head and form a belief that money is a certain thing. Some people, money can create so many happy things. For others, money can cause pain, confusion in the family. It can be a source of anger, angst, and agony. The beliefs that were created in our childhoods are usually hidden deep within our psyches. They influence how we deal with money at the most basic level. When we earn and spend money, we do it based on the rules that may not make much sense. Nevertheless, we abide by these subconscious rules because we don't know how to operate any other way. We do it at our own peril. These beliefs also surface when we have to make decisions in our careers and relationships. We may choose stability over excitement because of our deeply ingrained money worries, stability over excitement. We may choose a partner based solely on his or her financial status rather than love. It is said that this process is so automatic, we don't even realize that it is happening, that it affects so much of our lives, our dreams, our jobs, and perhaps most concerning, our relationships with our loved ones. One example of my clients was upset at her husband because he was buying a cheap gift for a wedding they were attending. She was ashamed and embarrassed. This was clearly going against her beliefs. So she told him that it was shameful and cheap to send such a gift. However, in his family, it was shameful to waste, to spend more than was deemed necessary. Because of their contrasting beliefs, they fought. And of course, both thought they were right, but nobody was right. It was simply that there are many ways to deal with money. Everyone has their own beliefs and approach, and often this is the source of most conflicts relating to money. However, if we recognize that there is no right way and tried to understand where our spouse or partner was coming from, we would not suffer so much. And I believe most divorces would be avoided. Your current financial situation and your family history. Your financial situation is deeply connected with your family history. As I said before, we are taught by our parents about life. However, we didn't learn our lessons about money from them the way we learned lessons at school. Instead, we absorbed the lessons. Everything we say, heard, or felt from a very young age stuck with us. Perhaps you heard yelling and screaming over money. And so you learned that you should yell and scream about money as well. Your parents looked grumpy when they paid bills, and now you look grumpy when you pay yours. What we don't realize is that every behavior, both good and bad, comes primarily from learned behaviors we witnessed as young children. Without being conscious of why we do what we do, we cannot change what we do. And sometimes we have to go far back in our family trees to find the roots of our financial issues. Your grandparents. If we were influenced by our parents, it is not hard to guess they learned their behaviors and attitudes toward money from their parents. Now, if you truly want to understand the intricacies of your relationship with money, my advice is to seek out both sets of grandparents. Our parents give us just a piece of the whole puzzle, but they had 4 different people influencing them, both in their childhood and in many cases early in their marriages. Surprisingly, most of us don't bother to ask our parents, let alone our grandparents, about their childhoods, their struggles, or their successes. We may just know their occupations, that they were teachers, policemen, engineers, doctors, or lawyers, but we don't know who they really are. We really dig to find out what motivated them when they were young, how they felt about things, namely what they were most proud of or what they were worried about. Without us consciously knowing it, our deepest fears are, in fact, our grandfather's fears. Unless we examine what they experience closely and come to terms with their experiences, we can't really know why we believe what we do regarding money. If your grandparents have passed away, I suggest reading general histories of their years, or asking some of their contemporaries, perhaps aged aunts and uncles, what they were like and how they survived during difficult times. I researched my own grandparents and I discovered a treasure trove. It wasn't a coincidence that I followed my father into business. One of my grandfathers was also a very successful businessman and died at 42. But in my research, I discovered he was more of a gambler. He used to buy ships full of merchandise and fish and cash them and turn around and sell them for a massive profit. While he was successful and made money happily this way, his son, my father, wanted to be seen as a legitimate businessman and wanted to be respected by his peers, so he went into accounting and finance. So much of my father's personality and relationship with money makes sense in the light of this information about my grandfather's past. Very often, we don't realize the extent to which our relationships with money are connected with our grandparents and consequently our parents. Coming to terms with this can be powerfully transformative. Once we know why we think the way we do about money, we can begin to heal and change. Siblings and close friends. Parents and grandparents are not the only ones who impact the way we unconsciously see the world. Our siblings and friends and large peer groups also influence our behaviors and beliefs. I once had a classmate who taught me the bad habit of buying junk food after school. He was somewhat of a rebel. Buying food after school without our parents' permission was strictly forbidden, and because it was all the more fun. I wouldn't have thought to do that on my own, but my friends can hold powerful sway over what we deem cool, fun, or worth our time and money. We watch everyone around us during these formative years and pick up other habits and layer them into our own. By the time we are young adults, we're carrying a lot of messed up beliefs, behaviors, and attitudes about money, and we have little awareness about how much we truly can take control of them. We don't realize just how much damage has been done to us unless we seek ways to heal the damage. We will remain a mess, and so will our finances. Your forgotten scars, remembering your hurt feelings. We're almost done. But I like Ken's chapters are quite long, but we're just 2 pages away. And then maybe moving forward for the rest of the last 2 chapters of the book, maybe I should split them in half, right? So that we'll have 4 more days of this book and then we'll be done with the book. But thank you so much for tuning in. If you're still around, I appreciate you. It's amazing how forgetful we are regarding what happened to our childhoods. People often forget what they went through. A lot of abused children think they had great childhoods. Families often brainwash their children, saying things like, "Oh, you had it easy, you've had it so good," or "We have had such a wonderful family back then." Some families collectively buy into the lie. Siblings will sit around and wax poetic about their parents and their childhood. Somehow they forget the struggles, or rather, they try to gloss over them because remembering them is painful and makes them uncomfortable. I was definitely one of those kids who grew up thinking my childhood was okay. I told myself that story for a long time because the alternative, remembering the painful parts of my past, didn't make me feel great. I was allowed, but as I allowed myself to remember my hidden wounds and scars, I realized my childhood was far from okay. In fact, it was pretty terrible. Money, or the fear of discussing money, dominated my mother's life and therefore my youth. I remember once asking her to send me to a summer camp that I badly wanted to attend, but because she was afraid of bringing up the subject to my father, who would often get upset about what he deemed unnecessary expenses, she didn't ask. Instead, she advised that we wait until my father was in a good mood. Translation: never. I was forbidden to talk about my request even at the kitchen table. Due to my fear of angering my father, that dream and others crushed and burnt before I could even get up the courage to ask for help in pursuing them. When I was older, I realized that I often kept silent about my dreams, primarily to protect my mom from my dad's abuse. He was abusive. That was a terrible and painful fact of my childhood. His anger could be triggered by the slightest thing, something that upset him, something as innocent as a child's request to go to a summer camp would set him off. Children often remember their parents' favorite catchphrases. Well, my mother's catchphrase was revealing. They weren't anything like do your best or just have fun or you can do anything you put your mind to. Instead, the advice my mother passed on to me was don't wake up, don't wake a sleeping baby, don't make a noise. Let's wait for dad to be in a good mood. For a long time, I was haunted by this. In Japan, it was taboo to speak of one's family drama or pain. It's taboo to talk in such a way about hardworking fathers who provide for their families. But the reality that my hardworking father passed on to his son a lot of damaging beliefs and ideas about money. It wasn't easy for me to undo. It was not easy for me to undo a lot of the negative thinking and fear that had been installed in me. The only way I could do that was if I was willing to admit that those fears and beliefs were there in the first place. Remembering our childhood trauma and incidences can be tough, but if you're committed to changing your relationship with money, it is necessary to step up. So, how do you heal your money wounds? Our bodies and minds seem to remember the past hurts. Whether something happened in a distant past or more recently, we feel the wound acutely when new experiences reopens it. It doesn't matter how much mental scar tissue we have managed to form. When someone threatens to take something we have or desire, such as money, we react in the same way we did as children. We feel deeply hurt, we feel worthless, and somehow not deserving. For some reason, we human beings intrinsically equate our self worth with the ability to get things or achieve things. If we receive good grades, accolades, or even presents, our presence on this planet seems valid. If good grades and compliments or presents are withheld from us, we somehow take this very personally. Something must be wrong with us. Something must be terribly wrong. Then we look outward and compare ourselves with others. So and so got the toy we wanted. So and so got the achievement award. These people who are somehow worthier or better or more deserving than we at a very young age, that who we are and our inherent value of human beings is deeply connected to what we can achieve or get. As we grow up, the same rules apply. If we receive a promotion, get a raise, or are showered with gifts and accolades, our worthiness as a human being is confirmed. In reality, though, we know that there is actually no connection between one's financial situation and one's inherent worth as a human being. Nevertheless, people believe this because this is all they have been taught their entire lives. One way to heal your past financial wounds is to accept that what you learned is not your fault and it is not your parents' fault. They learned from their parents who learned from theirs. Collectively, as a society, we all share some responsibility for perpetuating these beliefs. We affirm them oftenly and regularly. So when people don't have money or they can't give money away or do things they want to do because they don't have enough money, they feel worthless. They feel powerless. And what do people who feel powerless and worthless do? Well, they yell, they scream, they take it out of their kids. They take a moment and go back in time and try to remember a time you heard your parents yell at you about money. Or perhaps they told you you couldn't do something you really wanted to do because you didn't have enough money. Maybe you're crying in your memory because if it meant you had to give up a lifelong dream, perhaps to go to college or travel overseas. This is where the healing takes place, and the healing comes from understanding and forgiveness. I want you to go back to that memory and observe your mom and dad in that moment. Do they look like they're in as much pain as you are? Is their anger a demeanor belaying the fear and anxiety they have? Or perhaps is it masking the disappointment they have in themselves for letting you down? Do you feel for them? Do you have compassion for them or understand now that they simply doing the best they could when they could, that they too were carrying around deep wounds about money? When you try to understand, you can empathize and ultimately you can forgive and move on. And you can also most powerfully forgive yourself. You can forgive yourself for not knowing better in the past, and you can take the necessary steps forward into the future. And the last paragraph, creating your best future by appreciating your past. A practice we have here in Japan is that we thank our ancestors regularly. The idea is that when you become conscious and aware of all the work that was done before you, you are more likely to be grateful for what you have. In addition, by linking yourself to your past, you can see the larger network of energy that made your life possible today. Many people have no idea how many struggles they have overcome to get them where they are today. And once you are able to see yourself in the vast continuum in the past future, you're more likely to behave and act with a sense of responsibility and for future generations. In addition, you are more aware of the continuum in the present, that your actions affect only you, but everyone around you, and that everything you have comes from a vast network of humans and their collective energy as well. When you eat a piece of lettuce, for example, you are able to see that it was prepared by someone, and before that it was stocked in a store by someone, and before that it was transported by a truck by someone, and before that it was tended and grown and picked by someone. Once you see that you're just a part of a long, wide, vast network of humanity, and then it's just easy to be grateful. It is easy to feel a sense of abundance. It is easy to marvel at what you have, where even if it's just a piece of lettuce, and that is a sense of gratitude for the little things can expand exponentially outward. When each realization of connectivity to the past, the future, and the present. After investigating your past and you come to terms with it, you may feel more comfortable and a bit more open to healing and changing your patterns of behavior in the future. If you already feel pretty happy about the past, you might find it easier to protect a nicer future. For so much of our future outlook is dependent on our present or our current beliefs and attitudes. If you can cultivate an appreciation of your hardships and glean important lessons from them, then you are likely to keep a positive attitude when difficult times come again in the future. This is all to say that you and you alone can create your own future largely by how you think about and act in the present. The energy that you put into the world, our beliefs and words, and the attitudes is the energy that comes back to us. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of chapter 3. Join me again tomorrow as I look at chapter 4, the flow of money, or in the next episode. Tomorrow is Monday, so I'll be recording something slightly different. But if I have a chance to do a Money Heist podcast, I will. But I did explain that Mondays I most likely won't be able to record these because I'm doing something different on my Facebook Live on Mondays, right? But I appreciate all of you. This has been such a fantastic book. It's my third time now going through Happy Money by Ken Wonder. And surprisingly, I'm picking up a few things that I didn't fully master, things that I need to revisit, things that I need to tell my partner about so that we can also practice. This chapter really focuses on intergenerational wealth, right? How you pass on beliefs to money has a massive impact as parents, future parents, siblings, as just human beings in general, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Shake my hand, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. 365, man. Cheers, everybody. Goodbye.